Hi, and welcome to the Same 24 Hours podcast. I'm Meredith Atwood, author of the book, The Year of No Nonsense. I'm a former attorney turned writer, speaker, and Ironman triathlete. Although right now, all I really like to do is lift weights. We all have the same 24 hours, but it's what we do in those hours that leads to our greatest health, happiness, and success. It's my goal to crack the code on a life of less nonsense so we can all make the most of our 24 hours. So let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Same 24 Hours podcast. I am your host, Meredith Atwood. And I'm taking a big breath because I'm very excited about our guest today. Samantha Skelly is here, and we are talking about breathwork. So welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
What year are you in if you're so good?
You know what? This is gonna piss off everybody, but man, there's been parts of this year that I'm like, this is my favorite year.
I get it. I mean, it has been like if you're into personal growth and you're into like resets and you're into figuring out what's important, like this has been the year for it.
I didn't realize. So last year I traveled every week. I was in a new place last year, and I was like, I love traveling. It's so great. I get to see so many things. But then this year we barely traveled at all, and I'm like, oh no, I'm a hermit. I love being at home. Like, this is so good.
Yeah, and no one is going to get me to put clothes on. I mean, I have clothes on right now for those who are listening and not watching. But I mean, like real getting dressed. It's just nice to not. I don't know.
Oh,
I mean,
it's good. It's
time
the
and
good
place.
life. It's the good life, girlfriend. I'm not going back.
Well, and I used to be a lawyer, so I used to like have to go into an office and look nice every day. And so anytime I start to do a new project or something that requires me to like go corporate, I'm like, no way, I fought that too hard. I can't go back.
I know. I've got my like little slippers on. I only put hat and a lipstick on because of this. Otherwise, I'm looking like a hot mess express.
Well, and sometimes when I do video podcast, I do. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, because I'm going to work out after this. I'm like,
Exactly.
Samantha doesn't care. It doesn't matter.
All right. You look great.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, so I kind of want to rewind before we start just diving into breath work, what it is, why we care, why we need it, and talk about you. Where did you come from and how did you decide this was a thing that was important to you? Let's like run through your childhood real quick and who you are, and then let's make the connection to what we're going to talk about today.
I get asked that question all the time. Where do you come from?
Where do you come from?
You're so weird. What happened? So I grew up as a child actress and a dancer. So my whole life was in front of the camera, on stage, that whole thing. And naturally, being in the entertainment industry, you deal with a lot of rejection, a lot of comparison, a lot of perfectionism, and those sorts of things are hard as adults, but even harder as a child, especially a child that like I'm a super sensitive being, just with everything. So years and years and years and years and years of rejection and comparison and perfectionism, blah, 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 manifested into a really bad eating disorder when I was 18. So when I was 18 years old, I started just chronically dieting. And I was on over 50 diets in less than 4 years and just really had no idea how to eat normally. Everything was, everything had to be calculated and measured out. And I couldn't not be on a diet. Like I couldn't just use food for health and hunger or intuitively eat. That made no sense to me. It was always so tied to calories and restriction and deprivation and exercise and the whole thing, to the point where it took up like 80% of my mental energy was around that whole shtick. So that went on for 4 years, and I called it my diet depression years, where I can remember times where I would wake up in the morning and the first thought in my mind was, oh, I can't wait to go to bed tonight. And not because I didn't want to live, but because the thoughts in my mind were just so overwhelming. My mind was constantly bullying my body, and I was caged in this reality that felt really just intense and fueled with fear. And so I began wondering if I would ever get over it. And there was this part of me that was like, no, you're just going to be stuck like this. Like, this is just the thing that you deal with. Like, you'll never find food freedom. You'll never find body freedom. But then there's this other part of me that knew better. And I've always been really deep into personal development. And through this like diet depression years, I just got completely sidetracked from doing the work and doing my practices and visioning and all that kind of stuff. I just sort of like shrunk my world during those times. My dad was and is a huge Tony Robbins fan, and so my dad used to like play Tony tapes in the car and on road trips. And so his large raspy voice has just been like consumed into my nervous system. Like
Yes. Me too.
yeah.
I love Tony.
Oh, he's great. He's super great. I did his platinum partnership last year, so I got to travel all around and go to his different events. It was so rad.
Oh, that's
But yeah, I got sidetracked during this time because I was so consumed with my like food addiction and exercise addiction and being wrapped up in that world that I lost track of what mattered. And I prioritized my body image over my mental health, and just spun myself into like a really dark place. So I got to a point where I'm like, I need to learn how to get through this because I can't live like this. Like, this is crazy. And so I began, reading books and journaling about it. And everyone was like, just do meditation. Meditation will work. And at the time, I love meditation now, but at the time I couldn't meditate because I felt so uncomfortable in my body. Like I couldn't, like the thought of feeling my emotions, I'm like, no friggin' way there's no way I'm doing that. No chance. And so I just sort of like tried all these like band-aid on bullet wound approaches and never really got to the core. So I was reading Eat, Pray, Love. And at the time,
that'll do it. It'll do whatever you need. That book.
It's so good, right? And so I flew to Bali naturally because that's what she did. And right. And I went to go find this like medicine dude, like this energy healer or whatever, this acupuncturist. And so I got there, and he started like doing his little acupuncture thing to me. And he's like, you have to meditate. Your brain's broken. You think too much. And I'm like, oh God, everyone's telling me to meditate and I can't meditate. So I'm like, maybe meditation's different in Bali. So I hop on the scooter and I go back to this like meditation studio that by where I was staying. And I went to try and go to a meditation class, and I missed it. And the next class on the agenda was a breathwork class. So I was like, breathwork, like, what is that? Surely that's just like breathing. Like, I've been doing that my whole life. And the timing on it, there was 3 hours. I'm like, that's crazy. I'm just going to sit there and breathe for 3 hours. It's insane. But I'm like, you know what? I got nothing else to do, so let's just go for it. So I walk up the stairs to this class, and everyone's lying down with pillows and blankets like they're about to have a sleepover. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what the heck's happening? And the teacher is dressed all in white, and he looks like Jesus. I'm like, what is going? This is weird. Some weird shit is about to go down.
Right.
And so he came up to me and he was like, are you ready to go on the ride of your life? And I'm like, I was like,
you're like, wait a minute. What do the pillows and blankets have to do with this ride?
I'm like, what is happening? He said, you are going to experience emotions in your body that you've forgotten about, that you haven't remembered that you could feel them. And this was at a time in my life where I felt anxious or I felt numb. And then when I felt numb, I did things to make myself feel anxious. And when I was anxious, I did things to make me feel numb. So I kind of just toggled between those two emotions. I didn't really feel anything else. So I was like, this guy doesn't know what he's dealing with, but I will try this. So I lied down and I started breathing in the pattern that they suggested. And within a few moments, my body felt so alive and so activated. And I really was breathing for 3 hours straight. It felt like 15 minutes because time just sort of collapses when we're in that altered state of consciousness. But I went through the entire spectrum of emotionality. I was, I was the highest states of like bliss and joy and ecstasy, and then grieving and crying and shedding away a lot of emotion that was like I was holding on to, and it was just so profound, so amazing. And I woke up from that experience and I was like, what the heck was that? I'm like, why does the whole world not know that we can do that? I'm like, if only like humans knew that we could absolutely achieve these states without any drugs or anything, just our breath, like what the heck? And so I just became obsessed with breath work. And this was 10 years ago. And it helped me heal my eating disorder because I could tell the difference between an emotional hunger cue and a physical hunger cue. And I realized that so much of what I was hungry for was an emotion, not food
Right.
or whatever. And I realized that like my body image has nothing to do with my happiness. And so there was like, I broke through like all of these illusions that I was living under. And so I then began studying breath work. I'm like, I want to get to the bottom of like what this thing is. And so at the time I took every certification on the market, which at the time was super limited. They're starting to pop up now. And we have one at Pause Breathwork, but back then it was barely anything. And so I then just became a student of the work, and I became just ruthlessly obsessed with bettering myself through breath work. And I never thought that I would start a business out of it, but 2 years ago I did. And it's amazing. And it's so much fun to teach people how powerful they are through breath work.
So how is breath work different than meditation? And if you had gone to the meditation clinic or like clinic, whatever it was, instead of the breath work, like what
Yeah.
would have been different? Maybe you would have gone into meditation, but how is it different?
Breath work is like meditation on steroids. It is,
Mm.
it gives us access way quicker without having to fight through the mind and fight through the emotions. So when we're sitting in meditation, if someone is brand new to meditation, they're sitting there and what they're experiencing is their mind going through a lot of chaos, the to-do list, the busyness, the fear, the worry, the everything.
And
And
you're
then
supposed
they're
to push that away. You're supposed to be like, push it away, push it away, push it away.
like, I don't know how you do that.
How do you do that?
And then you're also up against emotionality, like the sensations in your body that are really intense. So we're trying to find stillness amongst all of this. And meditation is so powerful, but it takes such a long learning curve for people to get to the results that they actually want. And so that's what I was coming up against. I'm like, I don't have the literally don't have the time to like sit here for 3 hours a day and try and like feel my emotions and get to this calm place. So what breath work does is it helps us unhook the mind so we're not so hooked onto reality. It helps us shift our emotions so we're not so identified with them. And it gets us into that place of alignment and peace and clarity way quicker than meditation. Now, meditation is beautiful after we do breath work because after we release the mind and shift the emotions, we can sit there in that state for like hours and you can feel amazing because you're not fighting all of these things that are trying to pull you away. And so I've just been the biggest advocate of breath work. Like breath work is like breath work technically is under the umbrella of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So some of my teachers call it like breath work meditation. But typically speaking, when people think meditation, they think sitting there in silence doing nothing, which is generally what we do. But with breath work, it is a type of meditation, but it is more intense. There's an active doingness to it, which I think people really love. Rather than sitting there in silence trying to achieve that state of bliss where we're moving the energy, we're moving the breath, the mind is focusing on a physical doingness, which brings us into the beingness. So the body's doing the work, the breath is doing the work, and our physical brains and minds aren't trying and efforting to get there, if that makes sense. And so much of what stops us in transformation is the efforting, the trying to, the forcing in order to get to that place of bliss and contentment and oneness and harmony and all the rest of it.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned was when you tried to meditate way back when, you had such a difficulty being in your body
Yeah.
that's why it felt inaccessible. And I had that same experience when I first I'd started therapy a couple years ago, and the therapist was a somatic experiencing therapist, and he was like, "I want you to feel the chair against your legs, and I want you to," and I was like, "I'm out of here." Like, no, like I could
Yeah.
feel this just
Mm-hmm.
revulsion to like
Mm-hmm.
feeling my body on anything, and that was very interesting to me. And so every time I meditate, there's often this lead in of seeing what you see, hear what you hear, and like getting in touch with what you feel. And I'm like, "Ugh, can't I
Mm-hmm.
just jump into
Yeah.
whatever it is I'm doing?" And by now I'm over it, and I can be in my body a little bit,
Yeah.
mostly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is an example of how that, I guess, would bridge what you do bridges that uncomfortableness, maybe, that if someone has with starting the meditation and being in your body? And does
Mm-hmm.
breath work bridge that a little bit?
It's less about a bridging of and more of opening the window of tolerance. So let me explain what I mean by that. It's most people don't have any capacity to feel their emotions, which is why we cut off our emotions. We go up to our head and we overanalyze, we over control, and we're constantly operating from our sympathetic fight or flight nervous system. We're chronically there as a society, which is why everyone's so freaking stressed out. And then 2020 happens, and then we're like stressed out, times 10. So that's essentially the deal. And the reason why we're not comfortable in our body is because of trauma. It's like we were growing up and we were like 2, 3, 4 years old, and we were in our bodies and we were experiencing everything. And then we had like a guttural, like trauma, and whatever that was, whether someone said something to us or we got denied or rejected or we didn't get our needs met, and we shut down. And so in that shutting down process, the system decided, I never want to be in my body again. This is a terrible feeling.
Yeah.
And so the body remembers everything. The body remembers how painful that was. So we created a protector that said, I'm going to live in my head. I'm going to overanalyze and control and be hyper vigilant about everything. So I never have to feel that feeling again. And so that's essentially why we have this inability to be in our bodies, which is a very normal thing, and it is a very conditioned thing. So when it comes to utilizing breath work, there's we have to slowly open up the window of tolerance for feeling. And what I mean by that is even a minute a day to start to feel the activations in your body and start to feel the aliveness of like, oh, I'm actually safe to feel this. I never recommend someone doing breath work for 3 hours like I did when I first started. I'm surprised I wasn't like, peace out, that was crazy, I'm out. So at Pause, we slowly guide people to the experience of feeling their emotions and really letting them be in that energetic state. And so it takes time, and we got to go slow. But I think one of the best things about breathwork that people love is we really do feel an enormous shift within a few moments. Whereas in meditation, it's like we're sitting and sitting and sitting and sitting. Like, did that work? Am I more enlightened? Am I woke now? Like, there's like this questioning, right? But with breath work, it's undeniable. You 100% feel it. You feel the shift. You feel the clarity. So for somebody who has experienced a lot of trauma, or just like anyone, my recommendation is like really start slow, slowly open up the window of tolerance, and let your body like feel it.
Okay. So obviously they can check out your programs and what you offer as far as how to learn breath work. But do you have anything you could share with us today? Or
Yeah.
like, could we do one? Or like,
Yeah. Do you want
yeah.
to? Okay,
Yeah.
let's do it. Okay.
How close do I need to get to the mic, or how far away?
No, you're good. You're good. Just like how
Oh,
you
so,
are, where you are.
okay.
So if you're listening right now and you're driving, don't do this because you will feel a little bit dizzy at the beginning. So if you're driving, don't do this. If you're like holding something fragile, like a baby or something, don't do this because you might drop it. I don't know. Don't just make sure you're safe. Sit down or lie down. Don't do this standing. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a breath pattern for about 2 minutes. And then we're going to take a deep breath in through the nose, and we're going to hold at the top.
Okay.
When we do that deep breath in and hold at the top, you're going to experience your body going like, oh, no, 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 for like 5 seconds. You're going to take a deep breath in and your body's going to go, nah, and just allow yourself to move through the chaos of that until you find the calm, because you will on the other side of that.
Okay.
When you're doing the breath pattern, you'll notice that there's a lot of activation that comes in your body. There's a lot of, your mind will be like, what are you doing? You're going to hyperventilate, all those sorts of things. Your mind is going to play tricks on you. So just observe the mind and stay in the body. Okay. So the breath pattern that we're going to do today is called the Triactive Breath. It's in through the belly, up into the chest, and out through the mouth. So it sounds like this. So I'm only breathing through the mouth.
Okay.
I'll try it.
But I'm breathing.
Yeah, you got it.
All through the mouth.
You got it. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's it. It's
my face. My face is bright red. I'm like, I'm so embarrassed. Breathing is so embarrassing. I'm like a tomato. Look at me. Oh my God. Do you see how, look at my chest. Have you ever seen anything like this? You're like, oh my God.
It's just different.
Glad we're not live.
We're just doing something different. So breathing only through the mouth. And then at the end, we'll take a deep breath in and we'll hold at the top, and then we'll relax.
Okay. I'm going to mute me.
Okay, cool.
In case I screw up and start laughing. That way anyone that's actually for real. Well, so I'm going to mute me. You lead. I will do. But in case I go off kilter, I won't be influencing everyone else's experience. Because I am a cartoon. All right, here I go. You go. You lead.
All right. So closing your eyes, dropping your shoulders, just taking a moment and observing your body, how you are now. And just without judgment, just noticing the thoughts in your mind, the emotions in your body. That's it. And placing your left hand on your belly, right hand on your chest, just feeling your body, feeling yourself. And when you are ready, let's start the breath pattern together. It's safe to breathe. It's safe to feel. Letting the body do the work. And when you're ready, taking a deep breath in through the nose, holding at the top. When you're ready, relaxing the breath, keeping the eyes closed, noticing the stillness in the body. The openness in your heart, the clarity in your mind. And when you're ready, opening up your eyes, coming back into the space.
That's crazy.
Yeah, right?
Wow. Oh my gosh. And you're right. Like with the holding of the breath, it actually wasn't the first 5 seconds for me. I just didn't know how long you were gonna have me hold. So it was like after a while, I was like, I wonder if I'm ever gonna get out of this. And I was like, it's okay if I'm not. That was what was weird. There, there was no panic. It was like, I'll eventually get to breathe. It was very strange.
Very,
But oh my gosh, that is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So that exercise, I do that probably 30 times a day. And the reason I do that is because, like, even now, it drops me into the sympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, so that I can enhance my critical thinking. My intuition is more on. I can make better decisions. When I'm chronically in my sympathetic and being in front of a computer and running 2 companies all day, you get it. It's like I will start making decisions from my sympathetic nervous system based on reaction, not being proactive. So whenever I need an energy boost, whenever I need a reset, whenever I want to send that shitty email, whenever I feel like, whenever I'm getting resentful, I'll just tap into that. And it's so quick. And like, what else can shift our state in less than 3 minutes? Nothing.
So that was less than 3 minutes. I was going to ask you how long that was.
Yeah. We breathed for 2 minutes and then we held the breath for like about a minute.
That was a minute?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Like if you would have said, okay, now we're just going to hold our breath for a minute. Like when we first started the podcast, there's no way. I mean, maybe I could. I don't know. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. And what did you call that? What was that exercise called?
The triactive breath. Triactive breath. Yeah.
So I assume you have there's many different breathing patterns for many different, I guess, like why would you have different breathing patterns? Is there a reason for doing longer, shorter?
Yeah, such a good question. So there's breath work. So that was an energizing pattern. That was one of our more intense patterns. We have softer patterns as well. So we have one called the hybrid active, which is just in through the nose, relax, exhale. So that's more of a relaxing one versus the triactive really activates the body. There's 2 types of breath work for relaxation and breath work for transformation. So if I want to relax at the end of the day, I'll do the hybrid active, which is just like a lot softer. If I want to charge the body up and before I go on stage or something, then I'll do the triactive breath. Breath work for transformation, when we do it. So if we do that triactive breath for a long period of time, we'll lose touch with reality a little bit and we'll go into an altered state of consciousness. And that's where like the deep work can happen.
Yeah, I could totally see that happening because there for a moment I was like, I was just like, I don't know where I'm at.
Yeah. Come to one of my workshops. You'll be like,
oh my gosh, I know. That was amazing. That was amazing. So tell everyone where they can find you and find about your breath work and just follow you so they can learn more.
Yeah. Everything is at samanthaskelly.com. So from samanthaskelly.com, you can access our 6-week breathwork course. You can access our breathwork facilitator training. All of my Hungry for Happiness stuff. So if food and body stuff is on there, you can get the book on there. You can link to the podcast. It's all there. So if you want more goodness, just samanthaskelly.com. And then I'm also super active on Instagram at Samantha Skelly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was great.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me.